Hello, my name is Logan Granis, and today I'll be teaching you how to paint a tabletop miniature.
For this project, you will need to buy the following supplies.
Virtually all of these supplies can be purchased online, at hobby stores, and even many comic book stores. If you want to support your local businesses, but you aren't sure where to shop, simply do a Google search for tabletop miniatures in Insert City here. For a starting miniature, I would suggest something simple. Something that'll be mostly the same color. As you can see here, I've chosen this marine. Next, you'll need a wash. Washes are used to make cracks and indentations in the miniature look like they have shadows in them, thus increasing the perception of depth. Thus, any wash will be a watered down but darker version of whatever paint base color it is covering. So a gray suit of armor would have a watered down dark gray in the gaps between the plates. You can either purchase washes pre-made or make your own. It's often easier to make it yourself, as washes can be hard to come by, particularly ones that match the paint base color you're using. If you go this route, acquire distilled water, the paint base color in question, cinnamon red, in my case, and a medium. The medium, also known as a surfactant, is used to make the wash thinner by reducing its surface tension. The recipe I find best is 1 part paint, 4 parts distilled water, and 4 parts medium. If this is a wash that you'll be using a lot, consider buying a mixing bottle to keep this wash long-term. Part 2. Removing mold lines and flash. Once you have all your supplies, get them arrayed in front of you, and make sure you have a few hours free. It also helps if your table is brightly lit. This keeps you from developing eye strain. Now, take your miniature in your hand and turn it over, carefully searching for any seams. These seams form as a result of the molding process, where 2 halves are pressed together to form your miniature. There is often excess material along this line. This is known as a mold line, or flash. Carefully use the X-Acto knife to trim this material, as well as any other excess material, pointing the blade away from you. If your hands are unsteady like mine, err on the side of not cutting anything at all, rather than accidentally cutting too much. Angle the blade so that it is mostly parallel to the surface that you are attempting to cut. Part 3. Adding primer. Once you're done with that, add your primer. I don't have to, since mine is pre-primed. If yours requires priming, however, simply place a few drops of primer onto your palette and use a non-dry brush to coat the entire surface of the mini. If your mini is going to be mostly dark, then use a black primer. If it'll be mostly light and pastels, use white primer. If it'll be mostly neutral, use gray. However, for a mini with sharp contrasts, use colored primers. If too much primer pools on one part of the mini, don't worry. Just spread it around with a brush. Once done, wait at least a half hour for the primer to dry before proceeding. This time can be reduced if it's on a hot, dry day, or increased if it is cold and or humid. Because it is both cold and humid where I am, I have the dehumidifier running in the background. Once it looks dry, wait another 5 minutes, and then touch it with the tissue, and then touch the tissue to see if it is still wet. Don't worry about the primer hurting your skin. Part 4. Adding a base coat. In the miniature painting community, there is some disagreement about whether to add a base coat first, or to add a wash first. One downside of adding a base coat first is that adding wash second might result in a dirty, mottled appearance for your miniature. This is fine if you're working with something like a zombie, or a plant, or a soldier wearing camouflaged armor. But if you were working with something with a smooth, clean look, then you would want to apply the wash first in order to avoid this.
In any case, the wash should be the same as the base coat, only darker. In my case, I will apply the base coat first, so that any modeling that occurs will simply be attributed to his camouflage.
Parts 5. Applying a wash.
Next, or first if you prefer, apply your wash or washes. I will be using a single wash, a very dark red. My recipe is 1 part cinnamon red, 1 part dragon black, 8 parts medium, and 8 parts distilled water. This is the same recipe as before, but accounting for the mixing of paints. Apply this wash so that it covers the mini equally and somewhat thinly. Remember, too little is better than too much. Also, keep in mind that because wash is by far the runniest liquid that we use in miniature painting, gravity will have a huge effect here. Thus, it is a good idea to lay your mini down flat while applying your wash, and to do it in sections. Consider waiting 10 or 20 minutes before flipping the mini over. Carefully and methodically is the way to apply washes, unless you specifically want the bottom to be much darker than the top. Keep in mind that letting the wash run to the bottom may be noticeably darker and streakier than you would expect from simple shadows, so be sure you know what you're doing if you just let it run down. Once done, wait another half hour for it to dry. If it looks more 3D than before, proceed to the next part.
Part 6. Add highlights.
If you really want your mini to pop and have strong contrast between light and dark areas, there are 2 different techniques to choose from. One is called dry brushing, and the other is called highlighting. Today I'll be showing you how to highlight. Unlike washes, you don't need to do anything too special to make highlights. Just use the original base coat colors. Brush some of the paint off by stroking it parallel to your paper towel to make a point, and add a very small amount of water to the tip. You want to apply these highlights to all the raised portions. In other words, everywhere that is not a crack or crevice. The point of adding the water to the tip is that the highlight should be slightly lighter than the base coat. This is to create the illusion of light hitting the raised portions of the miniature.
Part 7. Add varnish.
After this, wait another half hour or so. If you don't want your mini to be shiny or glossy, then you're done. But if your mini has, say, steel plate armor, you might want to apply a varnish. Again, remember, less is more. While it may look nothing like what you expect it to while it is brushed on, trust me when I say it'll look great after it dries. Just make sure it doesn't pool too much in any given area. In my case, I will be applying the varnish to his goggles to give the appearance of something that is made of glass, and to his weapon. While in a war zone you might not take too good care of your armor, a soldier always takes good care of his gun.
Conclusion.
And now you're definitely done. While this process probably won't allow you to make a mini that'll win any painting competitions, it is an excellent start that'll be sure to impress anyone who knew that this was your first mini. Thanks for watching.